You're listening to Nothing's Off the Table, the podcast where no subject is too taboo to discuss. Now, please welcome your hosts, Andy Barker and Lou Del Pree.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nothing's Off the Table. Lou, welcome back, my brother.
Thank you so much. Happy to be back. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you to everyone that's been listening, and if we have any new listeners, let's welcome them as well. Boy, you got a funny looking grin on your face right now. I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, I was sitting here and I was thinking, we want to give people a peek behind the curtain. So earlier, Andy and I, we're doing our little pre-show and we're talking and we had to take a break. And Andy said, well, I'm just gonna, turn off this light over here and adjust something over here. And I said, okay, I'm just gonna run outside and tell my daughter to come in from playing. Right, that's my responsibility, because when I told my wife I was going to podcast with Andy on Friday nights, the response was, as long as your kid needs you to do everything out,
She runs that house
just like that.
Yeah.
So I go out to tell her. I open the door to tell my daughter to come in, and it is storming.
Oh no!
Like lightning. Like I have no idea any of this is going on.
Oh, you are in so much trouble.
The great parent that I am.
You are in so much trouble.
So I yell upstairs, hey, is I home?
Oh, geez.
My wife said yes.
Oh, wow.
She came in 20 minutes ago.
Hey,
but she allowed me to panic and probably loved every minute of it.
Oh, I'm sure she did. Hey, I had a really cool opportunity this week. Two opportunities actually. I got a chance to meet Vic and Ken on one of the local radio stations here, News Talk STL, and it was great. Had a great time talking to them, and then of course Todd, who was our guest last week, he's got a new show starting called The Right Mind with Todd Showalter, and that starts tomorrow at 5 p.m. Like I said, a local radio station here. However, they have an app, and you can download that app and you can listen to it wherever you're at. But the other cool thing was that I was fortunate enough to be a guest on his show. So the very first debut episode, whatever you want to call it. So that was really cool. But anyway, if you're local here in St. Louis, check it out. It's News Talk STL tomorrow at 5 p.m. The Right Mind with Todd Showalter. And if you're not local, download the app and check it out.
Yeah, and he was fun to talk to, down to earth.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool. I mean, and what you saw during the podcast was, what we saw before the show, what we saw after the show, real down to earth, genuine guy. I enjoyed talking to him a lot, and smart.
I know him, actually, obviously I know him well, and that's how he is as a person, man. That's just, he kind of reminds me a lot of you, where I can't really get a word in a lot of times.
Yeah. I'm trying to be better.
You're getting better. I think we got a little lag going on here, but that's fine. Anyway, so if you're new to the show, actually, everybody that's listening, we actually have a brand new platform, if you will. Same old show name, but we've kind of changed things up. So we're going to go in segments nowadays, and we're going to talk a little bit about whatever we talk about, whether it's a guest, whatever the case may be, or a topic that we have. Clearly, we don't have a guest tonight, and that's fine. But then we'll go into our story of the week. And so Lou and I will both present a story that we feel is either relevant to what's happening in today's society or current events, or it's just plain funny, or both, which is largely the case with our liberal brothers and sisters nowadays. But like I said, no guest tonight, but what we're going to talk about, and if you don't know, Lou is kind of a subject matter expert on a lot of things. And this is going to piss you off when I say this, but Lou has a photographic memory.
Yeah, that does piss me off.
Anyway.
Go ahead, I'll explain after.
Yeah, so I thought what we'd talk about is you've been on this big kick lately about the Wild West. The Tombstone.
Before I get into the Wild West, let me first correct your initial assessment here of a photographic memory.
Actually, we did prove you wrong. You can have photographic memory and a photo, whatever the other one.
Eidetic imagery.
But yes, that too.
Yeah, eidetic imagery is more often what people think they refer to as a photographic memory, but what they're talking about is eidetic imagery.
Hey, listen, I'm going to turn 60 in about 10 years. Can we not talk about this until then?
Yeah. Can we get into it? Right.
Right.
No. Yeah. No. So Andy and I were talking first. About we talk a lot, right? And I've been reading a lot of books lately, listening to a lot of audiobooks and things, and I was talking to him about a couple of books I was listening to on the Wild West, and I said, one of the things I noticed, because we had started it out as a political conversation, and this is kind of one of the things that I keep in the back of my head as I was reading these books. What I was coming to understand was, at the time of the Wild West, your word was your bond. When you said something that meant something. And what the authors in the books that I was reading, different authors writing about different characters at different periods, so not related, but sort of making similar points that at the time, in particular, when talking about Wyatt Earp and the Clantons had openly threatened Wyatt Earp's life. That was enough for Wyatt Earp to just shoot him in the street. And it would have been perfectly legal. It would have been considered self-defense, and no jury or judge would have ever convicted him. He could have just stood him up and shot him, and that's it. Because he publicly threatened him. But
before you go too much further into this, I know that the show Yellowstone is super popular nowadays. And, the spinoffs that have come from that, to 1883, and I don't remember the other one, but it's kind of a unique perspective. And what I really enjoy about what you do with these readings, if you will, is you're able to break it down and you can make it relevant and understandable in today's society. And I think that's important too, because a lot of the stuff that you're reading is not the common information that's been put out by your standard history books.
It's true. You'll have to excuse me. You get a lot of misinformation or things that you learn in school that you find out later on in life. Not only are they not true, but they're in a lot of cases completely false. There's no basis in fact at all. I go to and I've said this multiple times on different podcasts you and I have been associated with, but now that we're together on Not, I was stationed on the USS Constitution, where I gave history tours of the ship, and that's really where I started to develop my passion for history and how to read and look at things. And I get to Paul Revere's house, and they're like, "Yeah, Paul Revere never said the British are coming," and I'm in like stunned shock. Like, what do you mean? That's what I heard in school. The British are coming, right? 2 if by land, 1 if by sea. Then he rides through Lexington and Concord saying the British are coming. And the person giving the tour is like, no, they were all British at the time. That wouldn't have made sense.
It's fascinating.
And you're like mind blown, right?
Right.
But same thing, like as you start to explore the Wild West and as you start to look at some of these things. But, the conversation Andy and I were having was, at what point in life did we take a man's word away from him? Did we start making excuses, right? Like, oh, well, he didn't mean it. Oh, well, he has severe depression, or, we started making excuses for what people were saying. But back at that time, there was no excuse, none. It was a different time. And the way it was looked at was these were hard men settling this land. There's a lot going on. Indian wars, Mexican incursion, maybe we're incurring them, depending on your political beliefs, leanings, whatever, right? But there's a lot of fighting going on. And the land is not tame. Okay. Wow. A lot of the animals we know to be domesticated today, that was when they were domesticated. Okay. At that time.
That's why they call it the Wild West.
Right. And so that's what they're saying is so you get this idea as you move through these period books of the Wild West. You get this idea that, don't say it if you don't mean it. And there's a lot of people backing down. There's story after story in all of these books. And I'll list some of them in the comments, or I'll give them to Andy, so you guys can check them out on your own. But story after story of a guy saying something and getting called out, and him saying, "You know what, I really didn't mean that," and people apologizing the next day. A lot of swallowed pride.
Oh, for sure,
is what was happening, because you knew if you had threatened someone and you were not prepared to carry that out, you better go fix that. You know, and these people got long memories. You know, you leave Dodge City and then come back 3-4 years later. You know, there's stories about that too. Hey, remember when you shot at my brother? You know?
Well, whatever happened to a handshake would seal a deal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, funny you bring that up. You know, in the handshake deals, you know, while Bill Hickok started his first sheriff job in Abilene with a handshake deal. There was no contract, but he did get some money, and they sorted some things out later on. But first, he agreed with the city council off of a handshake. You know who else did handshake deals and was part of the reason he left?
Doc Holliday?
Oh, God, Howard Cosell.
Oh, really? Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell was a huge Howard Cosell believed in the handshake contract. We don't need to sit down. We don't need managers. We sit down, you know, and we do it. And he got upset when a new producer for Monday Night Football. There were some other things. There was a lot going on in Howard Cosell's. I mean, you know, he showed up drunk one time.
One time.
Hated O.J. Simpson. Hated O.J. Simpson.
Well, you know what he got fired for, right? The infamous line that he got fired for on Monday Night Football.
Well, he didn't get. Well, he came back, but I know why he left. I know why he left. But go ahead.
You know. I don't remember who. I don't know if it was O.J. Simpson. It doesn't really matter who it was, but he said, "Look at that monkey run."
Oh yeah, no, it wouldn't have been O.J. because O.J. was in the booth with him.
Yeah, he was. That pretty much. Could you imagine?
Yeah,
if he said
Cosell,
something like that today.
Well, he'd be dead. But Cosell had a handshake deal, and when the executive didn't ask him back, that was the other thing. They told him to go. He was told to go. And ask to stay, or he wanted to. They told him to do something, and he could come back if he went and did it. And he said, "No, that's not how it works." He said, "Every year I was asked if I would return, and I said yes. He needs to come and ask me." And they said he's not. And they said, "Well, then I'm not doing it."
Yeah, well,
so he was very old school, very old timey,
very old.
There's a movie about it on HBO called Monday Night Mayhem.
Interesting.
It's the whole story of. How
anyway,
how they came up with that. Yeah, going back to the West though, and talking about handshake deals.
I would love to hear.
So let's go back to Tombstone. Right?
Yes,
let's go to Tombstone. We'll talk a little bit about Tombstone, right? So there's a book called Ride the Devil's Herd that talks about the Cowboys and how they came up. You know, when you get into the Cowboys, right? It's this huge organization, right? And they don't have the Gadsden flag, but they have some sort of snake symbol that you could tell worn on their hat. No red scarf, but they did have a sort of scarf that they would wear. Curly Bill Brocious did lead them, and he was just as unpredictable and wild as, you know, the movie made him out to be, right? When they looked at his life, you know, one time a deputy got another guy, and they were going to ride out and arrest the Cowboys for not paying taxes. So they come upon Curly Bill Brocious. And the guy says, "You got to pay your taxes, man. I'm here to arrest you, right?" But it's politics too, right? You know, like he knows he has to go. Like the sheriff knows he has to confront him, but he knows he's not going to do anything because Curly Bill Brocious has this huge organization behind him, and at this point in time, the federal government is completely incapable of taking care of this cowboy menace, right? It's just finished the Civil War. You know. The generals are all dead. I mean, we're in a rebuilding phase.
That's a great point. So, you know, people don't understand that cowboys today is kind of, hey, I want to be a cowboy. But cowboys back then were not your average friendly, you know, happy-go-lucky, singing on the trail type of individuals.
No. In fact, there's a story of Ike Clanton jumping a ranch claim. So the problem is, like, the records are all conflicting, right? And so you try to take what the records mostly say, right? So you're like, okay, well, 4 people said it this way, so these other 2 probably aren't, you know, the best, right? Which is why he said you have a lot of changes in the history, because, you know, somebody was only able to get a hold of 3, right? And so you have 2 telling it one way and 1 telling it the other way, and they're like, okay, well, it must be that way then, right? Because but now we found 4 others, you know, going with, so you see changes in stories over time as we discover more stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating that the way it's exchanged. But they have people that write about all this stuff. And yeah, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about the government's just incapable of helping. People pretty much know that. But anyway, so Ike Clanton jumps this claim, right? But there's a dispute whether he jumped it or bought it, or if anybody was even there, right? And he gets in an argument with a cattle rancher next door to him, right? He gets mad at him because he thinks he's selling cheaper beef, right? Well, they stole all that cattle from Mexico. And that's something that people have to understand too as well, right? Is, the Mexicans have a legitimate beef at this point, right? Because the cowboys are just riding in, man, just riding across the border, stealing cattle, shooting people, and riding back. And the government can't stop them. But we're telling Mexico, don't come in here, right? You come in here, that's an invasion. But we're not stopping them, because we're incapable. So they're sitting there like, all right, well, you know what? We're just going to militarize our border. So Mexico militarizes part of its border, right? And just starts shooting anybody coming near it. But that's because of the cowboys. So the cowboys, so anyway, Clinton's got this ranch like stuffed with cattle, and he's on record somewhere telling the neighbor, keep this up, and just so you know, I don't pay for that cattle. Like I'll market you out, buddy. I'll sink your ranch. Like it just tells them straight up, I don't pay for my cattle. And that's just how they were. They have a case of Johnny Ringo robbing a guy. And there's no record of Johnny Ringo ever going to any school. He just dressed nice, right? And it was fast gun, but they speak in Latin and all that stuff. Then maybe nobody knows. No record of him going to school.
Probably gibberish.
And not hanging with the cowboys that long anyway. Couple of times, couple of encounters with the Earps. He gets shot years later. Drunk, running his mouth. It's all fascinating. Like all these characters and where they go, and what happens. But again, I go back to that period of sort of your word, but you think about the correlation between then and today. How do we think about our judiciary today, right? How much faith is in our judicial system, right? I mean, you tell me.
Did I lose you? I think we might have lost your audio there. All right, I'm going to assume that you cannot hear me. Technical difficulties as usual. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this. I don't know what happened, but it is what it is. Here we go. So anyway, technical difficulties obviously on the live side.
Wow.
Not sure what happened.
Fell apart, man.
Yeah, you said you heard a pop?
I heard some kind of pop, and then all of a sudden I couldn't hear anybody, and I'm talking, and I'm doing all these things, and we're trying to figure it out. But backup equipment is up and running.
That's right.
So we can continue the story. Of course, I forgot where I was going with the whole Johnny Ringo thing. Right? Why wouldn't I?
That's right. That's all right. So anyway, I think we're talking about the whole Tombstone in general.
Yeah, just Tombstone in general, Civil War things going on, a man's word being his bond. And again, nobody's, one thing I want to point out is nobody's really saying that. It's just, over the course of looking at a couple of these books, I just start to realize, because they keep talking about different people who gun people down in the street. And then after the fight, they're like, but so-and-so had publicly threatened him. And so he was released 2 days later. Or so-and-so, witnesses said so-and-so had threatened, and so it was considered self-defense. Constantly when Ride the Devil's Herd, when they talk about, the Cowboys and Wyatt Earp and all of them, they talk about the judge. Oh, now I remembered where I was going with Johnny Ringo, right? All right. So we were talking about the justice system, right? And parallels between the Wild West and today. And we we're talking about Johnny Ringo, right? So Johnny Ringo robs this guy. They arrest him. They bring him in. Him and I think, I can't remember the other person who was brought in, but it was somebody, from the movie, another name that you would recognize. And then there's a ton of names that never come up. You have to figure Tombstone, you have 2 hours to tell, about a 15-year story, right. Of all the developments and things that go on. But anyway, so they get the judge in there, and the judges are afraid of these cowboys, man. They built a jail in Abilene, and the Cowboys tore it down.
Really?
They had to, they went in there and ripped it down brick by brick. See, for building a fucking jail in here, man. Oh, pardon my language. Again, So that's the problem. See, we get to it, where we're working very hard not to curse, and so I want to call it out when I do it. You know, I just did it, and you know, I'll have to put 27,000 in the FCC jar. Right? That's how we'll think of that. That's how every one is like 25 grand. But anyway, you know, so the judge has the person who Ringo robbed, you know, calls him in and says, yeah, we got Ringo and we got so and so and we got your money here, but you know, they say you know, you said you only had what, let's say $5 stolen from you. Well, we found 10. So you need to tell me which coins were yours and which were his. He's like, yeah, I don't remember which coins. They said, well, then we can't. Then we don't. If you can't tell us which coins are yours, then how do you know any of these are yours from him being stolen? Man, could you imagine having to tell which quarter was yours?
Oh my God. Yes, I could imagine. Yeah, I've seen a lot of dumb shit in my time. Oh, I just blew it too.
Oh, yeah, put 27,000 in the
right.
FCC jar, right? Unless we can get a radio show at 3 a.m., then it's unrated.
Right. Well, we can, you know, if I was if I wasn't as lazy as I am, I'd go through and beep it all out, but I'm not going to do that.
No, it would be good. Well, we're getting better. We had 4 last time.
Right.
This time we only have 2.
So far. Night's young.
Right. But so we talk about the Wild West, and you know, there's an interesting scene in Tombstone for movie aficionados, right, where they're about to fight at the gun OK Corral, and you know, this has been documented on several occasions, and it's documented well in the book. But the gunfight at the OK Corral took less than a minute. 30 rounds fired in less than a minute.
Wow.
Yeah, and Wyatt Earp fired most of them.
Wow.
So they were saying, well, going back to being a man of your word and all that stuff, to talk about the gunfight at the OK Corral, the reason that was important and that was brought up was Clanton did threaten the Earps publicly that he would kill all of the Earps. And so when Behan from the movie is slimy, Sheriff Behan, he's got the girlfriend, and in real life he's slimy too. He does not like the Earps. He's got a nice thing going with the Cowboys. No, you know, there's no, you know, they come in and shoot up the town occasionally, but you know, they listen to him and he's got a nice thing going. And then Wyatt, of course, stole his girlfriend, Jolene Blaylock, and you know, so he hated the Earps. But he came up, told the Earps, you know, they're down there, but, you know, it's a gun-free zone. You know, and Virgil said, well, I'm going to take their guns. And Behan said, I disarmed them. And they just were like, come on, man. You know, we all know that's not true, right?
Right.
And Behan was, you know, you know, I can't, you know, clutching his pearls like, you know, I'm the marshal or sheriff or something. So, but the point that they make was they never had to walk down and attempt to disarm them. Because Clanton threatened them publicly, they could have just went down there and shot them all in the back, and it would have been okay. So they make that point. They did not have to go down there, right? So earlier in the day, Virgil had kicked the crap out of Ike Clanton, right? He bushwhacked him, hit him in the head with his pistol, threw him in jail till he sobered up, and then let him out. Ike Clanton went to the gun shop because he was going to go get the Earps, and his friends came. So Ike Clanton went to the gun shop. The gun store owner said, I'm not selling you a gun, man. Bleeding from the head. I already know you got hit in the head, man. You're still bleeding. He said that, and I can smell the liquor. No, I'm not selling you a gun. Right. And the comment made in the book was, you know, Ike Clanton and the other guy, I always forget his name. And as soon as I hear it, I'm like, oh, how did I forget that? But Ike Clanton and the other guy who couldn't buy guns that day from the gun store owner, he said they have no idea how the gun store owner just possibly saved their lives. Because they were the only 2 unarmed at the OK Corral, and they were the only 2 not to get shot.
Interesting.
Yes.
You know, can you tell the story about the horse?
That's what I'm getting. Yeah, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Yeah. So in all the gunfighting, right? But I think isn't it interesting? In all the gunfighting, those 2 don't have a gun. They run away. No bullets fired in their direction. None. These people had the presence of mind in a less than a minute gunfight, where I think 3 or 4 people lost their lives. Anyway,
proper gun control right there.
Right. So they're arming up. They get Doc Holliday comes around. He's like, hey, what's going on, man? You know, and they're like, well, you know, we're going down here to talk to these guys. And he's like, and Doc Holliday's down, man.
he's down. And they talk about him just being down for a fight because he likes the Earps. He's friends with the Earps. The Earps are friends of his, and he is down to fight. So he said, well, I'm going to go too, man. I'm going to get my gun. And they say, well, you could have the shotgun, So he takes this double-barreled shotgun, and they start walking down the street. And earlier they had talked about a gunfight that Doc Holliday was in, and they don't go into it. They don't say it. Maybe I need to get a book specifically on Doc Holliday to research this character more. But at this point in the gunfight in the OK Corral, he has already been in a gunfight with the Earps and not known he killed this person, right? And like put rounds into the dead body, right? Like just like he gets in this like, and he starts pumping rounds into dead bodies.
For those in the know, we call those security rounds.
Yeah, right. Yeah, little moonroof, make sure he doesn't, wake up at night. So anyway, so they're getting ready to fight, right? They're talking, they're about to fight. Wyatt senses somebody's about to draw because his hand goes to the gun. So Wyatt shoots first, right? A horse, when Wyatt shoots, runs between Doc Holliday and his opponent. It's a very famous scene in the movie where the horse runs between, right? In the movie, Doc Holliday fires one barrel of the shotgun in the air, causing the horse to, rear up, right? And then when that horse rears up, that gives him the, movie perfect clear shot,
right
into his opponent, right? And he wins the gunfight, and it's a cool scene and all that. So I'm reading in the book about the gunfight, and they're talking about, Wyatt starts shooting, right? So they talk a little bit about that, and then they're like, okay, now a horse has just run between Doc Holliday and his opponent. And I'm like, that happened. All right. This is cool.
Right.
And then a complete departure from the movie. So the horse runs between Doc Holliday and his opponent. Doc Holliday can't get a clear shot. He's looking to see how he can get around the horse. But he knows, the other person's doing the same thing, right? I mean, so that's why you're not like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a chess, you're not just running around because, that guy's on the other side doing the same thing. So Wyatt Earp notices it after he's shot two people. Wyatt Earp turns and shoots the horse right in the ass. So that horse takes off. Right? And as soon as that horse takes off, Doc Holliday's like, oh, Christmas. And he puts both barrels into that guy.
Damn.
They said one barrel right in the neck and the other one just directly into the side. Looked like hamburger, right? And that guy goes down. But apparently Doc Holliday in all the confusion cannot hear. And so he pulls out his pistols, and the guy fell behind the trough when he shot him because he hit him so hard. He starts shooting behind the trough, screaming, "USOB, I'll kill you, you son." That guy died before he hit the ground. They said they had to go up there and be like, "Hey, man, it's good. You can stop now." Like he's reloading, trying to shoot like these dead bodies and stuff.
Yeah, that's the one thing Hollywood never gets right, and I'm glad that they don't. Is what a body looks like when it's been hit with a shotgun or a high caliber weapon.
Oh yeah. People don't need to see that.
No. But I can picture it easily, unfortunately.
Right. But yeah, they say that gunfight happened real fast, man. And then after that, Virgil was shot and killed. And they talked to Wyatt Earp afterwards, and he said, he lost a brother, like for in those wars, man. He lost a good brother who was a fighter. Now they have a fifth brother, James Earp, right? Who just. They have more. They have a bunch, right? They got James Earp, who's everywhere. Well, I can't tell if there's a brother or a dad, right? The book goes back and forth, and this guy's not around much. But James Earp comes around every now and then and helps out. Before Virgil becomes a lawman, they're all in jail at various points in their life. There's stories of Wyatt escaping from jail, Virgil climbing through the roof, because they're running illegal card games. That's a quick way to make money is if you're not running cattle, because cattle's a seasonal thing. Like all these things are seasonal, then you're gambling. You're running cattle or you're gambling or you're providing security for Wells Fargo or something.
Right.
Get one of their badges, and for the delivery service, you do all that.
Or or Pinkerton, which is
right. So
huge.
they're always running illegal Pharaoh games, is what they're doing, right? They're always running cards and brothels and shit, getting arrested and stuff, and so they get put. Oh, I did it again. Sorry, another 27,000 in the FCC jar. So they have their experiences with the law and everything, and they have their problems. And you can kind of see how they ended up taming the Cowboys, right? Because the thing about the Earps and the significance of the OK Corral is that it showed the West the Cowboys were beatable. If no one stood up to them, no one, and lived.
Right.
You know, and they showed that you can do that. You can stand up to these guys and you can live. You know, like that you can break them because they had that strong brotherly bond. They never got caught alone.
Right.
You know, never got caught alone.
Unlike the movies that you see where you always have somebody out by themselves,
yeah.
You know, it just didn't happen. You know, it's said, and you tell your kids this all the time, there's safety in numbers. Well,
yeah,
there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, so they have another brother, right, that never quite gets, you know, the fame that they get, right? And he's but he likes to run his mouth, right? He likes to ride the Earp name. And Virgil called it, man. You know, he's gonna run his mouth one day too much because he just wasn't around when they were doing shit. You know, he was, you know, God, I keep cursing. He just wasn't around when they were doing things. I gotta get out of the habit.
I'm so bad I don't even catch it, man. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever.
I know, and I'm so bad I let it out. But anyway, you know, they're talking about you know, Virgil saying he's going to die violently. So yeah, one day he runs his mouth to the wrong man who takes him outside, draws down, and puts a hole in his chest. You know, but of course Wyatt Earp goes on to live. You know, Virgil gets maimed.
You play stupid games.
They do their things. Yeah. So then there's another interesting character, you know, that started all this, and a lot of people don't know about his story. But wow, Bill Hickok, man, that guy's amazing.
He's wild.
So he is credited with the first side-by-side gunfight duel, right? Like, we're gonna draw. You know, now they say that credit is in dispute. But what they say is not in dispute was he was one of the first most famous people to do it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna cut you off there because it's do you know what time it is?
It is time. Can I just do one more thing before we cut?
Absolutely. Well,
here's what I found was fascinating, Andy. He was a cross draw.
Really? And he was still that fast.
Guns high and a cross draw. And then what they said, what they brought up a couple of times when I was reading the Hickok story was the cross draw allowed him to clear the code at the same time.
That makes sense.
And he wore his guns high.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I do know what time it is.
Thank you, Lou, for that wonderful history lesson there. It's fascinating stuff, man. I'm really, you know, growing up, my father always wanted to be a cowboy, you know, growing up. And it's pretty fascinating when you find out some of the actual truth vice the Hollywood stories and the spaghetti westerns and whatnot. But anyway, hey, look what time it is. It is time for our story of the week. That's right. So,
who's going to go first?
You, since you already warmed up and ready to go, you go ahead on with it.
All right. Hey, so like Andy said at the beginning, you know, we're going to pick one story a week that sticks out to us. My story, you know, I get fascinated by technology. I love technology. I did splurge and get myself a Mercedes Benz, and I got an email, and then I went and looked it up. And it's true. Mercedes-Benz has partnered with ChatGPT. And I have the article right here. I just want to cover a quick highlight of it. But yeah, Mercedes-Benz adds ChatGPT for in-car voice control. So the Benz already had a great system where you say, like, hey, Mercedes, you know, turn on ambient light and it'll turn it on. Or hey, Mercedes, turn on the air conditioning, turn up the temperature, turn down the temperature. You know, you can do all kinds of things with it. Now you can actually have conversations with it. Wow. Like now it has ChatGPT. So I did sign up for it. I did download it. And today I talked to it about the Taiping Revolution in China.
Really?
1911. Yeah, 1911. Yes.
How?
I asked if it thought, if we went back and added mortar fire, because I ask it weird questions. And so I asked it if the Chinese had access to more mortars than the Taipings in the Muchin side, do you think they would have won? And it said, well, your assessment is, it gives these very scientific, and first of all, I just want to say mortars is a dumb question. I'm talking about the Chinese rockets, right? You've seen them, but anyway, it's a very dumb question for that revolution. So
you're just testing it out.
I'm just testing it out, right? And so it told me my observations were very astute. But anyway,
didn't know you yet.
But it's cool. It's really neat, and it does collect information. Which I know a lot of people are worried about their information being collected. It does collect some information. It is listening while you're in your car. It does talk about what information is collected, what is not. Mercedes-Benz is very strict about that. So it made it very clear what it, and it said it twice before I could agree. It's just so you know. So it does always listen, but it does, it's only looking for certain things, which is why it has to, if you do agree to beta test, it has to listen all the time because it has to, figure out when it missed it.
You're going to be on another watch list soon.
What's
another one at this point?
I swipe my card for 90% of what I do in life. They have my pattern of life, man. They know where I am, when I am, what I'm doing.
You're screwed no matter what.
Yeah, I don't carry cash because I'm an idiot, man. But at the end of the day, I thought that Mercedes was very upfront about it. But I thought it was really cool. They partner with ChatGPT. AI is getting smarter. I think it's going to do really neat things. I know people get nervous when you talk about Neuralink and chipping people's brains and stuff, and I understand that. But the amount of paraplegics that will be able to walk again, the amount of physical neuro deficits that are occurring in people, that these chips will be able to rewrite those electrical patterns and do things for people. Hey, I get it. I'm just on the side of, I think there's going to be more good than bad, but I agree with you 100%. There absolutely is opportunity for bad, but I love when I see stuff like this and technology like this. And that's my story of the week. Mercedes-Benz partnered with ChatGPT.
I'll tell you what, if they could make it to where they could take pain away, I would consider it.
Yeah.
But awesome story. I'm kind of scared. I'm wondering how long it's going to be until the government gets involved and says you can't do this while driving, blah blah blah, whatever. Anyway, speaking of government, my story of the week, I'm sure, I know you've heard of it, but I'm sure many that listen have heard about it. The Mitch McConnell incident on live television. So
yes,
in watching it, and I'm going to play it for you here in just a second. Well, let's just play it now, and that way I'll go ahead and give you my assessment on what I think. So here we go.
To finishing the NDA this week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of Mitch.
So, a couple things happened there, right? First from the humor side of the house, I think he probably crapped himself and realized he wasn't wearing his Depends diaper, so he wasn't sure whether he should move, talk, walk, whatever. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
That blank look, man. You can tell he checked out, man.
Oh yeah. So, in my opinion, and those that don't know, Lou and I have combined over 50 years of medical experience together. It looks to me like he had a TIA, a trans-ischemic attack, and I hope he's okay. I don't wish ill on anyone like that. He's not my favorite politician by far, but I hate to see anybody suffer through something like that. Which brings me to my point of the story, is that we really, really need to not only have term limits, but we also we need age limits. I mean, you have an age limit to become a senator or congressman. So why not have an age limit? I mean, this is embarrassing, honestly. It really is. On a grand national or international scale, these are our leaders. And this is, you got Biden constantly falling upstairs or mumbling, stumbling prick. He's got marbles in his mouth half the damn time. Don't know what he's saying. And again, I feel sorry for the guy because he's so out of it. He doesn't know what the people are putting him through. I think you had an example earlier.
Oh, I do. But, one thing I wanted to point out about McConnell was, consider this too, beyond the TIA. But, my mother had dementia. And when I saw that look in his face, my first thought was he doesn't know where he is.
Yeah.
That look of horror.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm in front of a bunch of people. Like, oh, shit. And my mother used to get, oh, my God. But I'm getting better I'm catching it every time I'm saying it, Andy. We're making progress. So anyway, but yeah, my mother would have that look on her face. I'd be talking to her and all of a sudden Lewis, when did you get here? But that look of like, can I get you something to drink?
I'm not sure how old I think he's in his 80s.
Yes, he's an octogenarian. Yes.
So
yeah. So Dianne Feinstein. You guys got to find this clip. You think the Mitch McConnell clip is bad? Dianne Feinstein. They call on her for an aye vote. They're like, yay or nay, right? And they're like the senator from California, Senator Feinstein, and she gets up and starts speechifying. Man, she's like, God. I would like to support this bill because it would add 20. An aide comes down. He's like, you just need to vote. But she doesn't get it. Like she doesn't get it. So she keeps going and she's like, and I support this bill because it will bring 23. And then the lady next to her, the senator next to her goes, just say aye. And she's like, aye. Like just gets told how to vote by the person sitting next to her.
That's kind of my point, man. Oh boy, we could go on and on politics. I really don't want to go down that road, but I just thought that was
Pennsylvania, man. We got Fetterman over here in the 95.
Oh
95.
my God, that's a whole. Yeah, that guy's an ass clown, plain and simple.
Well, if he gets reelected, man, you deserve everything that happens to you, Pennsylvania.
So,
I'm from Pennsylvania.
You
I can understand it the first time, but I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about narcissism. He has this major life-altering event, but yet he still goes on, and he wins. What's that say about the people that voted for him?
Well, here's what I'll say. This is what I'll say, man. If we didn't run a homeless shelter for poor Republican candidates here in the Conservative Party, we ran Dr. Oz. I mean, I'll look.
Oh boy.
I only have one social media. That's Twitter, and I followed the campaign via social media. And I'll tell you what, man. Like I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. I think Kathy Barnett was a superior candidate. But Oz got the Trump endorsement as a favor from Sean Hannity, is what the word is out there, because Hannity and Oz are friends. So Trump gave him the endorsement as a favor to Hannity. So he blew out every other candidate in the primary. But traveling around Pennsylvania, how do you argue with Fetterman? He can't say anything, but what he does say is, you don't even live here. after every tweet, Fetterman would be like, you don't even live here. What do you say to that, Oz? What do you say?
Right.
And I know people who voted for Oz because Trump said do it.
Oz is a
because
quack.
They didn't know the other candidates and they didn't care as soon as Trump said, that's my guy. And I'm like, so you're the one who screwed us, right?
Oz is a quack. Straight up.
How do you argue that? You don't even live here. When I would see that on Twitter, I'd be like, oh, man.
You can't.
Yeah.
Fascinating, man. Fascinating. Ted Cruz, when was this? This was a couple years ago. He tried to introduce a bill into Congress. Not only talking about term limits, but just what we were saying is to put a cap, I guess, on age,
Yeah.
Clearly it didn't go anywhere because look at the turds that we have in office right now. They're not going to vote themselves out.
No, they voted themselves power. If we back ourselves way, way, way back to when the government was formed, you didn't elect senators.
Right.
They were appointed by state legislatures. Bills originated in the House. It was the people's house because the people elected the representative. First of all, we should have mass expansion of that. We need redistricting. We got congressmen representing far too many people. We need more districts, and we need to expand the House. We capped it at 330 because of office space and parking. But they need time. I mean, if you're going to bring in 87,000 IRS agents, you can bring in another couple hundred congressmen.
For sure.
But make a long story longer. Bills originated in the House because they were the people's house. The people elected them, but the state legislature appointed senators, and states had different processes for that. And they were never elected. And so you had what the people wanted, which started out in the House, and then when it got to the Senate looked out for what's in the state's best interest.
Right.
Not here for the people. I'm here to look out for the state. That'll bankrupt us.
Right.
We can't do that. You know what I'm saying? And then it would go back to the people, and the people would say, no, we really want it. And it would override the Senate and go up, right? So that was how government was supposed to work. Well, they didn't like that because in local elections, you can overturn a governor quick, right? You overturn the governor, you overturn the state legislature, he's getting recalled. We don't want you anymore, buddy.
That's right.
If you flip that state legislature from red to blue, those red senators are going to get shit canned and blue senators are going to go replace them, and vice versa.
Yep.
And they didn't like that. So they argued for the 19th, it was 17 or 19, the direct election of the Senate, right? Because they were tired of they were getting thrown out too easy.
We should bring that back.
Repeal it. Repeal the amendment.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to do the term limits if you repeal the amendment, right? That's going to do a lot too, right? By repealing the amendment. And I think that should be a priority for somebody in there too. But people forget that. I mean, they forget the government doesn't run the way it was supposed to. Like, oh, government's so fun. Yes, I agree, but that was not how the founding fathers intended it. There was no direct election of the Senate.
Unfortunately, people, it's not the fact that they don't remember that, is they're not educated on it from the get-go.
That and well, people forget too, though, it was oh my God, I could see him, but I can't. Big historian, Republican guy, Speaker of the House.
Tip O'Neill?
Not Tip O'Neill. I was thinking Tip O'Neill, but it wasn't him. It was the one who did the deal with Clinton.
Oh God, who was that?
Who was the Speaker of the House under Clinton? He's on all the time.
Shit.
I can't remember his name. He had the great Great New Deal. Not Great New
Newt
Deal.
Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich.
Yeah.
Newt Gingrich was the one who made congressional races national. Newt Gingrich was the one who did that. They used to always be local. And Newt Gingrich was the one that said, if you want to contract with America, you better win these Senate seats because it's the only way we'll stop Bill Clinton. He's the one that did it. Republicans did it so that we could take control away from Clinton. And then they all became national after that. And now we're suffering from it. It's almost like that same issue that Harry Reid got warned about by Mitch McConnell. You take away those. You go to simple majority for judge appointees. You're going to regret that. Remember, because they wanted to slam home their justices.
Yep.
And he told them, you're going to regret it. And then what happened under Trump? Hate Mitch McConnell all you want, but he is a gamesman. He's been there a while, and he slammed home judicial appointees, man. Slammed them home.
Well, we could talk about this for hours, and we could actually revisit, but it's about that time to move right on into our next segment. And that is Vets Helping Vets.
Right. So again, veterans helping veterans. We want to close the show on a positive note, always adding something, rather than taking away, because I know a lot of that politics, it does get heavy. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really get into it so much because I want to drive my agenda. I get into it so much because I find it so fascinating how people behave, especially when they think you're not looking. Anyway, but in our segment, Vets Helping Vets, what we're going to do is try to highlight different organizations that are helping out veterans because, there are so many out there. Well, let's start to highlight them and talk about some of them. So the one I wanted to talk about is one that my company commander got involved in. It's called Higher Ground. You can find them at highergroundusa.org. That's highergroundusa.org. And they offer recreational therapy out in the high mountains where they'll take vets climbing, and sort of similar retreats like Andy's Umpire Academy, where it's not so much the climbing or the skills that you learn about climbing. It's the fellowship and the being together. So if you like the outdoors and you love mountain climbing and you're not afraid of the cold, check out Higher Ground. Again, that's higherground. Make sure I give it to you right. highergroundusa.org. Check them out. And, and hey, if you're if you're fortunate enough, to be able to support, then, try supporting them. Good group of people doing good things with vets.
Absolutely. And if you know of an organization out there that is doing something good for vets, then please let us know. Contact the show. You can contact me directly at andy.not, N-O-T-T podcast @gmail.com. And we'll be happy to check them out and support them if we, the high and mighty that we are, feel that they're worthy. But anyway, hey, I apologize profusely for the technical difficulties.
Oh, it's probably me.
It's just one of those things. There's nothing you can do about it. But at least we finished the show. And if you joined us on Facebook earlier, thank you. If you're listening to this on either YouTube or one of the podcast platforms, thank you as well. And we look forward to bringing you guys some pretty cool topics coming up here soon. Anyway, Lou, any last words?
No, sir. See you guys next week.
Well, all right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.